Hello and welcome back to what is this, episode 4 of the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. Maybe a little ways in the future, but I believe it'll get there. I'm here with Jed. How you doing, man?
Good. I'm actually like feeling uh a lot better, a lot more energetic than last time.
Yeah, well, you've got the shirt going on.
Yeah.
That's in the spirit of it. I don't own anything really that is Bitcoin Cash branded. I got to be honest, but I'm sure somebody could make a killing selling me one of those shirts. Where'd you get it?
Um I think oh no, this one I got actually from oh man, this is from like 2017. It was just a fella that I met in a Facebook group, like the Facebook group that got me into cryptocurrency. He made me this one, there was a Monero shirt that had the XMR symbol on it, and then had "Mind Your Business" as the caption underneath. I think I hold on. I've got an Instagram post. I believe the shop or his shop was called like the Liberty Forge.
All right, sweet. Let's definitely give them a shout out. Because that's some quality material you got going on there. That would be. I'm jealous. I have to get one of those and rock it out. To be honest, I don't really go in for like branded stuff for the most part. Like being like a Nike or whatever. People love that shit. For me, it's kind of more like, look, I'm not your brand ambassador, but for Bitcoin Cash, it's kind of different, right? Because it is a community-driven movement. It's not like some company like profiting off you, giving them free advertising. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
definitely rock that shit.
Yeah, it was the Liberty Forge. It seems like their Instagram is no longer a thing, but maybe they're still
Liberty
around. See
Forge.
what's up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, people can look that up and check that out. I guess get some get some Bitcoin Cash swag happening. Right, so today is the 30th of... Oh shit, I did not update the date on this. But, well, jokes, it is actually the 7th. Let's just quickly change that while I'm looking at it. Alright, today's Sunday, right? So, let's do here, Sunday, 7th Feb. You can see how far in advance I was preparing this shit. Alright. So, it is... Alright, 7th of Feb. Alright, so I just had a look at CoinMarketCap, Bitcoin Cash, $452. And I was looking at this and I was thinking it's funny how human psychology is, right? Because Stella's gone up a bit, Chainlink has gone up a bit, so Bitcoin Cash is now number 11. It's dropped down and it's barely above Dogecoin. So you think, oh, it's a disaster, but it's actually $50 higher than last week. So,
Yeah.
it's just really a question of how you look at it, and I think it's fascinating. Obviously some people were, oh, the sky is falling, we're out of the top 10, but I don't know. Personally, I don't put much stock in that. I don't know what you think.
I think the top 10 just shows like the market's super speculative right now and the fundamentals don't matter that much. And you still see BTC people going like, oh, this is the early stage. So if they're saying this is the early stage for them and, they have the most like, um, they hold the most space in people's psyche when they say cryptocurrency, then I don't think the top 10 matters for probably another 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you can look at the top 10, and definitely like once you filter out like Ripple, for instance, is not even like mined, right?
Yeah,
And
it's like take out anything centralized, take out anything that's, I don't know, maybe not, like I'm not even really that interested in things that aren't proof of work for currency.
yeah,
So,
yeah, me neither. I think definitely we got to do an episode about that at some stage, but about proof of stake and all that. I mean, it's interesting, right? It's good that there is this sort of experimentation, and it's interesting
oh yeah,
that
absolutely.
Ethereum is kind of trying to make that jump, and they are the number two. So, like that's one approach, for sure.
I just want to I just want to say I handled Ethereum for the first time in about 3 years.
Yeah,
4 days ago, 3 or 4 days ago, and I bought like $30 of it because I had a friend who was like, "Uh, make some trades on SushiSwap and Uniswap, and people have made thousands of dollars in free airdrops just for trading with those exchanges.
Yeah.
So he's like, pick a day, make a couple shitty trades. It doesn't even matter if you profit or loss. Just keep an eye out for the airdrops. I could not make a single transaction because the fee was 75% of the Ethereum that I bought.
Rip. There you go. That's
Yeah.
the end of
I was
that
like,
then.
fuck this.
You know, you sort of wonder who is transacting this stuff right now when it's like, you know, it's $25 or $30 to send a transaction. I mean, I saw somebody sort of saying, yeah, well, this is all based on, you know, if you have a more complicated like transaction or whatever, that it's more, you know, costs more, and maybe theirs was like $5 or $6. But even at $5, I'm like, fuck that. I'm not buying. Like, what am I going to buy that I'm happy with $5? It's got to be more than probably $1,000 before I'm happy to pay $5. Really, you know.
Yeah.
So
Some of the like initiating smart contract fees are like hundreds of dollars.
God damn. And I guess they're putting their hopes on the whole layer 2 stuff, you know, Ethereum, blah, blah, blah. It's, in some ways, I saw a really good comment somebody was talking about, maybe that's reminiscent of Bitcoin, that they're going down the same path, but we'll put a pin in that. We got to come back to that. That could be another separate episode. That's a massive topic I'd need to read up a bit too, I think, before we got to that. But yeah, anyway, we got the price. So then big BCH transactions still killing it, still churning up in this 6 weeks from December 23rd, I think is that first day, and now it's within touching distance of Bitcoin, really. So, you know, if you keep this trend going, what, another week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, definitely it'll be doing more transactions. That doesn't mean necessarily that it has more utility, but it's, you know, it's one important metric for sure.
I think this is, especially considering that noise.cash is like social media, even if it's microtransactions, this is like a real world use case.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited to see like the Sphere, which is a game that uses SLP, like NFT, SLP tokens and whatnot. I think if that gets any kind of like games built on Bitcoin Cash is going to skyrocket the transaction count.
Yeah.
So it'll be very soon.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think, yeah, okay, even if you're transacting 5 cents or something, there's just the value of, yeah, the actual, like, people involved, because, you know, they talk to their friends, they talk to their family, they're somebody, you know, maybe they've got some, and then they think, oh, shit, I you know, this is really cool, Bitcoin Cash, and then they go out and buy some, you know, themselves, or they get less interested in using whatever their government currency is. And the other thing about it, I think, is that those small transactions are what Bitcoin is, like, obviously completely neglected, right? Now it's not possible with a $5 or $6 fee to have your 10-cent like game transactions or whatever. And so if Bitcoin Cash just starts swallowing up that whole market, that I think a massive amount of people. So yeah. I mean, we'll wait and see, but I've been enjoying this this graph. It hasn't slowed down. Right. So one of the big things this week was Kim.com. I don't know. Did you watch this? Did you look at this Clubhouse recording?
I just saw the tweet about it this morning, and I've only been up for an hour. So.
All right. Well, you know, you can check it out later if you want. But I've got a summary of the points, you know, and I guess this is topical, right? Because Elon Musk was on Clubhouse, and he was, you know, talking about crypto and whatever. And so I guess Kim did the same. For people who don't know, Kim.com is a entrepreneur who did this site called Mega, where you could upload and share around files. So he didn't actually have access to the files, but he got kind of busted by the US government for you know, illegal file sharing and copyright, you know, with Hollywood and all that sort of stuff. And they've got a bunch of his assets under you know, under like custody and all that. And there's some incredible footage of his house in New Zealand getting like raided by the I don't know who it was, the FBI or the government. Like the paratroopers are coming in with their attack helicopters and shit like that. It's some real movie type stuff. Have you ever seen any of those clips?
Not of his, no.
Okay, all right. We'll have to get, maybe next time, so we can get a clip of that, because that is just unreal. It's literally like, yeah, some sort of movie scene. But anyway, he's still kicking on, and he's in New Zealand still, and he's a big fan of cryptocurrencies, right? Because he's a very, you know, freedom-minded individual, and he had this debate with a bunch of people. I guess it could have just been whoever, I don't know, could just join the call, right? But basically, for the most part, they ended up being BTC, like Bitcoin supporters, and Kim has been more enthused about Bitcoin Cash because he's working on this new project K.im, right, which is it's basically the same as Mega, except you can pay in cryptocurrency, right? So the idea is that, like, let's say I want to publish some content online, an article, or maybe an episode of this podcast, I don't know. I upload it into a payment container that gets encrypted, then you send around the link, and then whoever wants to, get access to that pays their, whatever you set the fee at, right? So let's say it's $1 to watch this podcast, people pay the $1 and it unlocks. So it's kind of like a more direct Patreon kind of method, except obviously you can do it with any kind of content and be on a sort of pay per use type idea.
Do you know if there's like a roadmap for that?
Yeah,
yet?
Yeah, there is. He's got this thing. I can look it up here. White paper. Kim. I was looking at it the other day, actually, but he's got a whole like breakdown of how this is all going to work here. So I guess I'll put the link in the description, but people can have a look at this. But it's got the payments and the publishing and the encryption and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, he's got these kind of stats about obviously people are moving more to online content. Newspapers are dying. Everybody knows that. And then he's got how the whole system works and everything like that. And there's a bit somewhere in here, maybe it's right at the end, where he's got he's got some of this stuff about the monetization model. So they're going to have their own crypto as well, Kim coins, but I think that, that's just sort of like a value add. And then he has all this stuff here about all the plan and how it was all going, right? So in 2019, it was going to be with the Lightning Network, and then Bitcoin Cash, and it's all getting hyped up to release later this year, right? That's the grand plan. But in this Clubhouse thing, he sort of talks about basically how he tried to do Lightning and it didn't work. So he had his his engineers, his team were all working on it, and whatever they tried, it didn't work, right? So then he somehow got onto Bitcoin Cash. I think he had a chat to Roger Ver about it. He told him like the history and what was going on, and and then basically said it worked, right? So we started using that. So his points were basically that it worked, that it was low fees, and that BTC supporters should just like leave BCH alone, basically, that they kind of have this dual narrative of like BCH is just this trash or it's this side project or whatever, but then at the same time they keep bringing it up, and he's like, well, if it was not a problem, you wouldn't be so obsessed about it, right?
Yeah, but then they mentioned the branding, right?
Yeah, well, that's right, exactly. So one thing that Kim said, and I think has been very on topic in the community where I've sort of focused this episode around, is the idea of the Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash like civil war, or the battle that we've got kind of going on. And I think on both communities, people need to sort of move past that, right? And just, there's no point fighting with the crypto community is still so small in the grand scheme of things. There's way more people outside of either community who don't know anything about this than people who are in either one, right? And clearly both chains exist and they've been running for a while, so should just like focus on your own community and not worry so much about trying to tear each other down, right? Crabs in a bucket.
Yeah. Exactly.
The classic crypto community behavior. I don't know, but so then basically the BTC supporters, everybody can listen to the recording for themselves. The link is right here and make up their own mind, right? But basically, as far as I could tell, the Bitcoin supporters, it was more sort of like, they don't like that Bitcoin Cash is sharing the Bitcoin branding, which I would say probably Bitcoin Cash supporters don't like either. Both sides of the equation kind of feel like it's a misrepresentation on the other half, but also neither side is going to move off that, right? Neither side is going to be like cede the kind of branding to the other. So I guess there's it's a bit of an impasse there. There's sort of some stuff about how BCH changed the difficulty algorithm. We're going to talk about that a little bit later too as well, but from my perspective, when the fork happened, BCH sort of had their hand forced, right? Because they were the ones who had to fork off and just because it was luckily that the BTC wanted to put in a soft fork rather than a hard fork, and so as a result, kind of had to make some last minute maneuvers to keep themselves in the race. So to me, that wasn't a big deal, but I don't know, to other people, they were kind of like, well, if you had to change the difficulty algorithm, it's no longer Bitcoin. Do you have any thoughts about
Yeah, so I really enjoy Vin Armani's approach to it, but so his idea is like, if Satoshi can come back and spend coins on your chain, it's Bitcoin. But aside from that, I also think like Bitcoin isn't just any one chain. It's the fractal of all SHA-256 chains with that shared history. And so I suspect at some point it will consolidate, and I think it'll be incredibly, like, there'll be blood on the streets when it does, but I think it'll be a good thing overall.
that? Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a sort of very the reason that people are so impassioned about this whole thing, despite the chains having been separated now for so long, is that it is really, an ideological kind of battle,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, in some ways, the whole cryptocurrency community is an ideological type of movement. So obviously, the hardcore are always going to be super invested in that. I like that. I'd never heard that before. If Satoshi can spend on your chain, then it's all good. That's a pretty concise and clear definition, that kind of captures what you want to capture. So yeah, I guess that's one way of looking at it. Obviously, that's not how the BTC supporters on this call were talking about it. They sort of made some points as well about their like home nodes, that they were trying to run, their nodes, and that if the block size was scaled and there was more transactions, then they would have to buy more storage space for their hard drives and everything. And Kim kind of says, yeah, but the cost of that is getting cheaper. The sort of standard response that if you really want to run a node A, you should be fairly prepared to invest a little bit into it. We're running like a $500 million in Bitcoin at this stage. It's not like, oh, sorry, we're going to divert everything so you can run your $10 node at home. Like, that's just not, it's not like a hobbyist project anymore as much. But yeah, anyway, they have their concerns about that. And then also they just kind of, there's a lot of like, we don't like Roger Ver is basically what it comes down to. In my opinion, basically these, Kim's points are focused on business and adoption and utility, and the Bitcoin supporters are more focused on who they don't like or whatever. It doesn't seem focused on the real end game of Bitcoin adoption, but that's just my opinion. They're probably not entirely without merit in some of this stuff.
Yeah, I suppose. I just don't think it really is that important.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, hopefully the community can all sort of come, like, again, yeah, I think the biggest point on this slide is this one here, where Kim talks about it, or urges the crypto community to move past infighting, and I think that's a message that needs to get out to everyone. So this episode, we're going to discuss what is Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin Cash, what are the differences, what are the similarities, because people need to know that information. But I don't think on either side it's not helpful to be rehashing the same debate. Which one's better, or which one's the real Bitcoin, when it's just like, well, both communities can do their thing. And
I think it would be really interesting to like essentially take like, I don't know, some 2014 unmoved coin, split all of the forks off of it, give one person a bit of every fork, and be like, transact with it, see like what you can find for adoption, like what of these variants of Bitcoin work the best for you in your day-to-day life.
Damn, that's quite an idea. It's funny because that could actually be feasible. I mean, I don't have any left. I don't think that we're. I sold all my Bitcoin, but yeah, that's a super interesting idea. And maybe just for people, that's a bit of a thought experiment, right? Which is that if you had that Bitcoin from back then, which had been on all those forks, whether you did or didn't, for real, just think about it, and what would you be doing with it now? I mean, I guess the BTC price would be the highest, but it might also be the hardest to spend, to be honest. So yeah,
there's a premium. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go on.
There's a premium for unsplit coins.
Is there?
So
Really?
yeah.
What people will buy? What, like the old chain ones, will they
Yeah, not
somehow?
so they won't it won't just be like the consolidation of all the prices of all of the chains, but also a markup on top of that because it's like a pure Bitcoin.
So who can buy that? Or because you can't transact those anymore, right?
Uh you could so
You just give them the private key, right? Is that what you're saying? Like,
yeah, that's the whole idea, but I can't remember it's like uh there was a physical coin that used to have the
oh,
hard or
you
the
mean the
private key on it.
Casacious coins?
Yeah, those coins would work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. True. True. Okay. So yeah, for people who don't know, there was this famous business that was made by this guy who made Casacious coins, which was at the time about in the 2013 2014 era. There was so many media articles about Bitcoin which had pictures of like physical coins on them, and because the public didn't really have this idea that it's just a virtual thing, right? So it's a coin, so they would have pictures of coins in the banner, and so he made these physical bitcoins, which were just these sort of gold colored looking things. Let's just look up a picture of one. Casacious coins, I think is what it was called.
Every time
Casacious,
I think of them, I just think of like couscous.
yeah. Yeah, so he made these, and this is like the what they kind of looked like, where they were just sort of like a $1 coin or something like this. But you can see here it's got 25 bitcoins on this one, and he had 10 bitcoins and whatever. So this was then the price was way lower, right? When it was like sub $100. And the thing was that he made let's see what it says here. Contained an embedded piece of paper with a digital Bitcoin value covered by a tamper-resistant holograms. Casacious coins are available in 1, 10, 25, 100, and 1,000 BTC increments, right? So it was this physical coin which had the private key stored on it, and the only way to get it out was basically to destroy the coin. So you could hand around the coins to anyone just like a real, $1 coin or whatever. But then if you wanted to actually get the Bitcoin out and transfer it another way besides physically handing it to someone, you would have to destroy it. So these became a bit iconic because as the value skyrocketed, suddenly these were not only they were like collector items as well as obviously insanely valuable. Like if you had a Casacious coin now, which was worth 1,000 BTC on it, I don't know if any of those exist, but that would be millions of dollars at this point, right?
1,000 BTC, 1,000 BCH, 1,000 BTG, 1,000 BSV. Like,
that's a lot of money. So if anybody
yeah,
has any one of those stuck down the back of their couch, maybe fish them out and just make sure
yeah.
you.
Hit me up. I want to do some social experiments.
Yeah. Well, anybody who does own a Casacious Bitcoin, they could definitely send me a message, and you can come on the show and talk about the story of it, how you got it, and everything like that. If you got one of these, you are a real crypto OG. That is for sure. So. Yeah, so basically, I think now that the two communities are starting to split, I saw this was a very interesting post by this guy, Michael Saylor, who's very big in the BTC community right now, where he says on his Twitter, with all due respect, Bitcoin is not a currency, it is not replacing the dollar. It is a monetary asset rapidly replacing gold as a store of value. It will coexist with fiat currencies as it attracts capital from weaker safe haven assets, which is, I think, I would disagree with in just about every single line, but I think it's an interesting idea that they have this sort of cryptocurrency. It's called that for a reason, right? It's a combination of the cryptographic security and the currency aspect, and it's now been determined that it's kind of not a currency.
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about.
Well, I think what he's talking about, and one thing I think that is okay to this is that if Bitcoin, now, obviously, if it is going to go in that direction, that's fine. Like, it's a free market. And if Bitcoin wants to be a store of value and, replace gold, well, that's fine. I don't think anybody's going to get in their way, right? But it does just sort of, underscore to me that it is not replacing the dollar. Like, that's not what Bitcoin Cash is doing. Bitcoin Cash is coming for the dollar for sure,
Yeah, I'm interested to see, because I think gold is like has an inflated value from the whole store of value thing.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see like gold go to a almost like a fundamentals.
Like an
Um,
industrial usage type price, right?
yeah,
Where like whatever, electronics or like crown filings or whatever it's used in, right? That's the price of it, and any sort of leftover, goes into Bitcoin maybe.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's interesting. I mean, to me, I think if Bitcoin Cash succeeds, well, people will it'll be a store of value too. It'll be a currency and it will be a store of value, which is what the original back in the day was. And so I don't really see a lot of space for Bitcoin, but definitely for the time being, while it is still got the biggest brand and the most known and maybe the most institutional kind of investors on Wall Street and stuff are interested in it, it's definitely, it can kind of have that niche for the time being, I guess. So yeah, I also saw this stats from BitPay, who are the biggest payment processor for cryptocurrencies, and this November 2020 is before that huge ramp up in transactions we were looking at before, right? So I'm sure it will have changed at least a little bit now, but the idea was basically that in June, Bitcoin was still most of the market, but then as time goes on, Bitcoin is having its actual payment share of the market being gobbled up, because it's just, well, I guess ETH is quite a big
Hold on, is
shit.
that all XRP?
Yeah, apparently, yeah. This
What the
black
fuck?
segment here in the pie chart. So for the audio listeners, basically on this left, I've got this graph here, June 2020, with the transactions on BitPay as to their currency. So in June 2020, Bitcoin was probably about 85%, or maybe closer to 85-90%, and then it split up to BCH, Ethereum, and Ripple primarily, basically comprising the rest in about a third each. And then November 2020, it's closer to more like 77 or 76 percent is Bitcoin, and BCH is what, 5%, ETH is 10%, Ripple is closer to 9 or 10% as well. So things are shifting. If Bitcoin's going to be a digital gold, it seems, or a store of value or whatever, it seems like it's losing there's an obvious trend here basically away from it being used to buy stuff, because like we said before, you're not going to buy a t-shirt for $20 if it costs you $5 when you could pay 1 cent.
There was actually, I don't know, you're not on Twitter, right?
No, I think I do have a Twitter account. I signed up to a Twitter account when Kim.com, he asked for people to submit if they were like Bitcoin devs and to send him a message. So I sent him a message, he didn't reply, but that's all good. Yeah, but I don't use Twitter otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, I put out a tweet a couple of days ago. My mom's fiance started mining just with NiceHash,
Oh, nice.
and um, he got like 130 BTC, or no, sorry, 130 Canadian
I
dollars
was
or
going to say
BTC
130
roughly.
BTC, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In about a month. So he's like, all right, so how do I use it? I recommended him Purse.io. He sent some money over there for an order, but then they added shipping and taxes to his order, so he went to send another $20. But the fee to send it was like $15. And I was like, and that day I just paid my credit card bill
Yeah.
with Bitcoin Cash, and it was yeah, 0.001 Canadian dollars to send like 400 and some. So I sent him a screenshot and I was like, this is where it's at, man. Like, I didn't know that NiceHash now supported BCH, so he's like, all right, awesome. I'll just convert it before I even move it. But this is literally his first experience with Bitcoin, and it was bad enough that he's like, okay, I'll use this like right off the bat.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's right. And I think that's something that the BTC community don't really have a concept of. Is you can say, oh, we're going to be digital gold and everything, but what you got to understand is the differential, right? The change in the community size. Because if you think, oh well, Bitcoin's great, and they think, oh, okay, I know 5 people and none of them are selling out of Bitcoin, we're solid. But the thing is, if everybody who's new comes and who isn't maybe plugged into that community and doesn't have all those connections and ideas and like confidence, and thinks, yeah, wait, just isn't working, or this costs too much, or it's bad experience or whatever, they just bounce right off and they go look at something else. And if if that ends up being Bitcoin Cash, I mean, again, it comes back to the branding and all that, and people just think, oh, okay, they don't know why that is, but they just know, okay, well, there's Bitcoin, which is not really working, but there's Bitcoin Cash, it's basically the same thing. It's great, you know.
Yeah. So I shared that around, and I've of course got like a couple BTC trolls, but that's not important. What I found interesting was I had a lot of BSV folks trying to be like, I think the caption to it was man's first experience with BTC leads him to BCH.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of responses that were like, oh, just skip the middleman, come to BSV. But the context doesn't make any fucking sense to me, right? So here's a man using NiceHash who doesn't support BSV, who wants to send his funds to Purse, who doesn't support BSV,
Yeah.
to buy things using a wallet that doesn't support BSV. Any of these people that are like, oh, he should have just used BSV, if I recommended that to him, I'd be recommending something that is useless to his daily life. Like, it has so little adoption that he would have to convert it to something else. And so I don't understand. Like, BCH has just as much, if not more, adoption in my experience than BTC.
Yeah.
So it gives it that much more utility. And while BSV might be able to scale, and I don't even want to get into like the theory about it, um, it's just not usable. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I personally know very little about BSV either. You know, what I try to do is I try and weight the opinions that I get based on how close to reality they are. In the sense that if I am on the street and I saw someone like, you know, like you're doing right now, wearing a BCH thing, that would to me would be like, it's happening, you know. But if you see 100
okay,
Twitter posts, well, that counts for a fraction of that, seeing that person, right? Because it can be a very small crowd of people online can make a lot of noise if they're very passionate or they have a good strategy for it or whatever, right? And in my experience, I have not seen any merchant accepts BSV or even BTC, right? Recently, there was a period where that was happening way back in the day, and that was really exciting. But you don't see that on BTC, you don't see that on BSV, but you do see on the, you know, BTC, on the BCH like subreddits, you do see people being like, look, this is, you know, my local whatever, and I'm mates with them, and now they're accepting it, you know.
yeah, I'm pretty sure just last night the Hayden Auto shared a screenshot from a TV show,
Yeah,
something to
that's
do
right.
with
Yeah,
like
the Amazing Race.
taxi cabs or whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they had a Bitcoin Cash accepted here sticker on the window to the cab, and that was on like their national television. So
Yeah, yeah. Let's line that up. I thought that was really interesting, actually. Yeah, because I mean, you know, both Australian, right? So let's see. Here it is. Here it is. Bitcoin Cash accepted here. Stickers seen on national TV. So yeah, I guess maybe you don't know this show, but right. But the idea is it's called The Amazing Race, and it's sort of like this travel show where you get teams of two people. So it'll be like a pair of sisters or like a husband and wife or father son. It's usually that kind of thing, right? And you get told, okay, you got to get from here to here, and you can just freestyle, you know, if you want to get a cab to the airport and then fly and then, you know, get a train or whatever, and you've got to do certain challenges along the way, all that kind of thing, right? So
okay.
it's a classic, like, so yeah, I mean, it is turning into a bit of a race and a bit of a scramble, you know. It's all hyped up for TV as well, but the idea is that it is people just moving around in the real world, right? I don't think they have any special, like,
You know, it would have been so badass
what.
if they were like out of money at the end of their cab, and they were like, "Oh shit, I do have some Bitcoin Cash.
Do you
Here, let
take
me
that?
just,"
And the guy just, yeah.
and then it's like boom, 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 done, and then they just fucking get out,
Yeah.
start going to the next spot. That'd be sick.
Yeah, well, I think that'll happen, you know, at some point, like we're saying. Yeah, this little Bitcoin Cash sticker here. And I've seen, again, I'm not in Australia, I haven't been back quite a while, actually. But one thing that I did notice is that there's been a couple of, like, posts of people being like, oh, we're at the Perth meetup, so we're doing this or that.
Yeah.
And it seems like Australians do seem to be a little bit switched on about this because, yeah, I don't know. It just seems like I don't know, we're a gold-based
Isn't it?
country. Maybe I don't know.
Isn't the airport? Sorry, what's the main? Is there like a main Australian airport?
What, like the Sydney International Airport?
Okay, okay. I know one of Australia's airports, like something like 90+% of its vendors accept a variety of cryptocurrencies.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but maybe it could be the Melbourne Airport or the Brisbane Airport, or I don't know. Actually, maybe.
Well, I think the advantage there would be like so many international travelers aren't going to convert their fiat, right?
Yeah.
But if you have a small touristy country that attracts a lot of those international travelers that all kind of have,
Have some
I don't know.
crypto.
I feel like like they kind of see a bigger picture already.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I would love to get yeah, get some more Aussies on the show maybe, and we'll find out how it is on the ground. I can also confirm that in this last week, or maybe even in this last 2 weeks, my parents, who I've been telling for 8 years about cryptocurrency and oh, this is hype and everything, and they thought, okay, this is our son getting scammed. What a troll, whatever. And then I guess eventually that came around to, okay, that maybe there's something to this. And finally now we're at the point where they're like, oh, okay, we're sort of interested in this. So, hi, mum and dad, if you're listening. But yeah, they said like, okay, yeah, our family's like starting to look into this, some of my relatives and everything like that as well. So yeah, I think to me at least it seems that we are sort of breaking past that tipping point where there's just been long enough things have normalized that cryptocurrency is not this weird online scam or whatever, that there is something tangible to it. 2021 too, it just seems like the future compared to maybe in the mid 2013, 2014. Like the 20 teens was when crypto was kind of coming into the public consciousness, and now it's like a whole new decade. So maybe people have are more open-minded to it there. But yeah, this is pretty cool. I got to be honest. This when I saw this, it did make me smile. So yeah, that's it. BCH killing it there. So yeah, and again, this is kind of the same thing. There was this post as well on the subreddit.
Oh yeah, that was George.
Yeah, and he's in South America, so he posted like for people who don't speak Spanish, basically saying like, hey, listen, this guy who's messaging him says, hey, listen, I need to get some money off you to buy the rest of my materials, because he was trying to paint his house, right? And he says, sure, like charge me whatever you want. Like, do you want Bitcoin Cash or pesos, like the local currency, or what? And the guy just replies, he forwards his address in, so you can see he's already got it ready to go, like it's in his wallet app or it's in his whatever, and then it just says Bitcoin. And like, I love that. It's made me smile.
That's how it's gonna go, man.
Well, that's right, and I think for BTC as well, this is the kind of stuff that they're not thinking about, because the original, promise of Bitcoin was so much around like communities in South America, like Venezuela, where the currency is hyperinflating, or in,
remittances and that kind of thing.
Remittances, Southeast Asia as well. Like I've seen on Read.cash, a lot of people in the Philippines and things like that are getting into it, where it has to be those small amounts, but it does build very rapidly. I think probably some of that kind of grassroots adoption, like a real community of people. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And one of the last bit of topical news is Nigeria bans their banks from touching cryptocurrency, which is
Good.
incredible, because they have a bit of a reputation for the whole Nigerian prince online scam kind of thing. But interestingly, Nigeria is the number one country in the world by more than double. It's like more than Austria is number 2. Nigeria is more than double that in terms of the search volume for Bitcoin. So I don't know whether a lot of people in Nigeria are looking into Bitcoin for the whole Nigerian prince scam. Maybe they figure they can scam people with Bitcoin, or well, I guess it would be quite effective, probably because it's irreversible. But also, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some more kind of on the ground adoption going on there too, because as far as I know, Nigeria actually has really good internet. Like they invested a lot in their internet infrastructure with like Wi-Fi and everything like that, because they sort of got to skip over that whole landlines phase and go straight to that. So yeah, super interesting. And you can see here some of the local Bitcoin's volume that I've got. Like there is actually pretty decent peer-to-peer volume. So everybody who was like last week, Luke asked me about on the show about regulation and about countries banning Bitcoin, and stuff. Well, we're going to see an example here, right? Which is that if you get cut off at the banks, it's sort of, that's a bad thing in one sense, but in the other sense, it probably heightens the peer-to-peer aspect of it, right? Because people
Yeah.
can still trade direct to each other, and maybe that's how it's going to go down, you know.
Good. I honestly don't see this as a bad thing whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. We'll see. Like maybe. No,
Pushes the culture towards peer-to-peer, towards security. Like, fuck yeah.
yeah. So on the ground adoption, if again, if any listeners are in Nigeria, I don't think we have any of those. But if there are, at some point, send in a message and let us know how it's going down there. So yeah, I thought today we'd just do a bit of a breakdown of Bitcoin versus BCH, just the once off, the guide, cover everything. What are the similarities? What are the differences? All of that. Let's just go over it, and then we can refer people back to this episode if they've got any of those questions. So the first thing is that Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash were at one time one and the same, which was originally known as Bitcoin. The Genesis block in 2009, it went along, and then it split here in 2017. So everybody was on one currency, and then it's like a sort of like a stock split, the cryptocurrency version of that, where everybody who had Bitcoin gets an equal amount of Bitcoin Cash and an equal amount of Bitcoin, and from that to that point where they're split, people can freely trade on the open market as to which one they like or which one they want to use or whatever. So yeah, that's how it works. So yeah, let's look at the things that are the same. Number one is Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator who made the Genesis block or whatever. So anybody who's trying to tell you like Bitcoin Cash was like a knockoff or a spin-off or anything, like you were saying earlier, if Satoshi can still spend on it, it's still like at least in some way related to the original Bitcoin, and that's kind of what we got here. All right, and then number two, so we've got the white paper. So that is like where Satoshi outlined exactly how it was all going to work. Like I talked about on one of the earlier episodes, maybe the Bitcoin community is moving away from that, and given that they're going for, it says here, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, if they want to be digital gold, well, they're probably going to abandon that plan. But Bitcoin Cash, that's the way it's going to roll,
Yeah, I think even the digital gold narrative is just going to switch to store of value rather than digital gold.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. And I think at the time of the fork too, this whole store of value in digital gold, that's a bit of a post hoc like rationalization in my mind, because at the time of the split, there was no discussion about that. But in hindsight, now that the fees are going up and everything like that, that's sort of what that community has decided they want to go for. So number three, what's the same is that there's 21 million Bitcoins and 21 million Bitcoin Cash. Well, there will be. And that they halve, so the supply cuts out or halves every 210,000 blocks, which is about every 4 years. And it will finish up in 2140 approximately. So as you can see on this chart here, basically at the start the supply was quite rapid. There was like 50 new Bitcoins every 10 minutes, and then it cut off in 2012, and it went down to half of that. It went down to 25, and then again in I think it was late 2016, it halved again, or early 2017 maybe. I think it was late 2016. It went to 12.5, and now it's down to 6.25 in each block for both Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash as they slowly progress along. And yeah, that countdown is just going to keep decreasing as it goes along.
Do you know if there is a like global M0 chart somewhere?
I don't know, actually. Let's have a look here.
I think it would be really interesting to see.
Here we go. FX Empire. Supply M0 across the globe. Here we go. Wow, okay.
I think it'd be super interesting if we could superimpose the timeline between 2010 to 2140 or so.
Yeah.
Of the global money supply versus the global Bitcoin supply.
That is a good idea. I mean, we might have to whip that up and come back to it next time, but that is a good idea. I mean, part of the problem with the M0, which is like the cash, supply like USD or whatever that exists over time, the issue with comparing them is that the future supply is not known, right? Which is a big
Yeah.
part of why fiat currencies have this kind of a problem where the like, let's just see, if we look at the Federal Reserve M0, like,
Yeah, I know at least in like the US and Canada, the M0 since Corona has like 4 or 5x.
yeah, it's going up. Yeah, I might not be able to find it right now while we're
Yep,
doing
no,
that.
if you go back to that and then click chart and
Here we
switch
go.
it to line.
Here we go. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then chart on the
Here we go.
top.
Yeah, and then line chart. Here we go.
Yeah.
And then
And
we
then
want
you
to
can
get
do the time.
Yeah, so let's get the 10-year chart. Wow. Okay. So let me just rearrange these a little bit so we can have a look at them side by side. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is, well, here we go. So this is sort of roughly 2009, 2012-ish kind of era. So yeah, I guess people can have a look here. So the Bitcoin supply is on it increases at a decreasing rate. So it has an asymptote towards 2140. And then we have here well, I mean, this is a pretty shitty graph because it doesn't start at zero, but the USD chart since 2012 has gone from, what's this, about 2 billion? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, about, no, hang on, 2 million up to, well, 2.5 times that, so 5 million. I wonder what the scale is here. Well, I guess, well, maybe that's it. Is there only 5 million USD in M0?
Oh, I have my doubts about that.
Yeah, I have.
Because M0 is cash and like the cash in someone's account, right?
Yeah, like at a bank account or something. I think we're gonna need to read up on this and figure it. Like, I could figure if this was like the supply in millions or something like that, but
check out Canada's.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting.
All right, let's say, do they have Canada here? Here we go, Canada. Let me see, Canada. Right, where's the chart at? Government bonds, currency. Here we go. Canadian dollar.
No, I'd still want the M0. I mean, that graph is pretty depressing too, but that's a whole other thing.
Here we go, 10 year. All right, so, okay. So
that's still just the valuation.
Yeah, that's the price. Okay. Where have we got? Yeah, I don't know. Where's the graph at? Currency, government bonds.
I don't know. I just Google Canadian M0 and fucking.
All right, let's have a quick look at this. M0 supply. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, and chart. Go to line.
Wow. Okay. All right. This is not.
That's since Corona.
This is not looking good. Wow. So basically, since 2012, when it was sub 1 million, according to this graph, and then after 2020, so it just sort of gradually went up from about 60,000, whatever the scale is on this graph, to just 600,000 to about 1 million, and then since Corona, it's gone from 1 million to 4.5 million. So it's just like this straight line, like it's like the BCH transactions graph. It's just going straight up, man. Wow, I had no idea about this. This is nuts.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you give everyone $2,000.
Yeah.
And you don't check.
I guess so, man. Like, and I guess this is sort of making the case for Bitcoin right here. I guess as we can see, this has been since the early days, right? This is what it's about.
Looking at these charts, you definitely see the argument for like protection against asset inflation, or like I can't even remember the right phrase for it.
Like devaluation.
But like essentially, as the dollar devalues,
store of
like
value, yeah.
people are going to look into But I don't think it's just a store of value. I think in this case, it's like a temporary safe haven, because they don't know. Like, if all of the stocks are denominated in a fiat currency and the future value of that fiat currency is completely unpredictable, whereas you see the trend of like, okay, everyday people are going towards this.
Yeah, like
I think
capital
it's
flight.
situation.
I think
Ultimately.
is one way of putting it. Yeah, that basically, I mean, it's pretty much just supply and demand, right? If there is a fixed supply of Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or any cryptocurrency, and there is just a constantly rocketing supply of fiat, well, then obviously your value is going to deplete in the fiat, because even if neither of the economies actually change in their size or their value or anything like that, just by there being more of one, the value is going to be preserved, kind of in the other one, in that ratio, right? That the ratio will increase, with the price going up. But I had no idea about this. This is insane. Now let's have a look at Australia. Then I'm curious now. I actually have no idea what the government's been up to recently in terms of their Reserve Bank of Australia. Let's have a look here. Okay, 10-year. Oh, okay, not good news in Australia either. So Australia on this graph, somehow the scale is completely different, but it's 50 at the start of 2012, and then it sort of bumped up to closer to what's this, like 80 in 2014, and then a steady rise up to about 120, and then in 2020, with the coronavirus crisis and stuff, it just basically doubled up to over 200. So, wow, that's
Do you
actually
remember, like 6 months ago, the IMF put out some cheesy music video about low and stable inflation?
it just doesn't make any sense. But the thing is, it's incredible to me that the whole cryptocurrency, I didn't know about any of this stuff. Like, most people, I guess, don't know about this stuff, right? That it's just literally the world economy. Everybody thinks, oh, that's the economics section of the newspaper. And unless you're really into it, and even if you are really into it, even if you're somebody who trades stocks or you whatever, people don't necessarily follow what is going on with the money that they use every single day. It just touches every part of your life in terms of how much money you make, what you can buy, and the prices of things changing. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So in my city, rent increases have gone up like 38.5%. For one example,
It
right?
just
And
in
this is
just
within a
it
year's time.
Yeah, in this last year, because of that graph we were looking at before.
Well, I don't think we've really felt the effects of the graph yet, but I think people that are increasing their prices are going like, how do I prepare?
Wow. And I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because once people start
Yeah.
increasing their prices, other people take that as a signal in the market. They do the same thing, and then, yeah, gee.
So what, does minimum wage have to 4x in order to like keep up? Like, yeah, anyway, this is like just like nightmare fuel for me.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, probably good idea to have a little bit of Bitcoin cash, one one way or another. So yeah, that's kind of one thing that both Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash do have, though, is a predictable supply and a predictable emission rate, which, as I said, increases at a decreasing rate, and it is now 2021, so it is already more than like 85% of the money is already in circulation. So the inflation rate in Bitcoin, which was very high initially, will be dropping off quite substantially. So there's a lot more room that if the economy grows and the value expands, that value will be reflected in the price, rather than just going to paying for miners to mine more coins. All right, so number 4, that is the same between the two of them, is the mining algorithm, which is this SHA-256. And I think this is important for people to understand, because critically, it means that the miners for Bitcoin are the same ones that mine Bitcoin Cash, and that they can swap back and forth at will, where they can't just swap to Litecoin or Dogecoin or whatever other coins. I don't think there is any other, besides Bitcoin variants. Are there any SHA-256 coins? No, right?
Not completely. I think like now I might be wrong about this, but I think both Decred and Digibyte use SHA-256 as like a multi algorithmic mining system. Like I think Digibyte uses 5 different algorithms.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and it's just to uh, like reduce the risk of centralization of mining powers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not. I think those are the only 2 that I'm aware of that could have 256, and even still, it's shared with others.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So basically, yeah, the idea is that when the people are mining bitcoins, they're running their computer to try and solve this computer problem basically, and that there's there's certain rules to that problem, right? In Bitcoin, the hashing algorithm, the mining algorithm is called SHA-256, and so when like Litecoin was invented, which was the first major alternative to Bitcoin, one of the things that was changed was, oh, okay, I'm going to make it a new algorithm, and what that did was meant that people who had developed very specialized hardware and computer chips to mine Bitcoin couldn't mine Litecoin, right? So then a new industry developed around making those chips for Litecoin. So every different currency, now has have adopted their own schemes or their own I don't know, their own algorithms for this. But for Bitcoin and for Bitcoin Cash and for Bitcoin SV and whatever other versions of Bitcoin, unless they change it, it is the SHA-256 algorithm. And for me, that is one of the great strengths of Bitcoin Cash that another currency doesn't have, which is that if Bitcoin Cash can outcompete Bitcoin, then all the miners will switch over, and it will already have that huge mining infrastructure in place that another smaller coin couldn't necessarily replicate.
Yeah. I mean, some miners would get outcompeted, actually, right? Because they would have to scale their fucking
operation,
their infrastructure.
Yeah, it's just this endless arms race of everybody trying to make the next, and that's true in every single kind of cryptocurrency, right?
That'd be good overall too, right? Like, then I think the hardware side of scaling would also become a little more specialized, which might be bad short term because specialized means centralized in my mind, but over the span of things, or over time, I guess, that would make the infrastructure much more reliable.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. Is specialization naturally leading to centralization? When I think of specialization, what I think of is the global market economy that we have now with 7 billion people, and basically to get if you want to get a job at McDonald's, it's not really that specialized. Anybody can learn that in 20 minutes and you can work there, right? But to be a neurosurgeon, you have to have trained for all these years and just gone into this more and more specialized field. And we still have a lot of neurosurgeons just because the population overall is quite big. So I don't know.
In that case too, it's not just that they have to train, but they have to study, train, and get
practice.
Essentially, like
exposure.
Like they have to be given essentially the decree that they're okay, either through a degree or an institution or a mentor or something.
Yeah. There's some sort of barriers to entry, credentials that you need to tick off as well. You can't just rock up to the hospital and say, "Trust me, I'm a neurosurgeon. Who's the first operation of the day?" Yeah. Where's the scalpel at?
It's interesting though. I was part of the Osaka virtual meetup recently, and they were talking about there was an exchange that reached out to emergent reasons, and was like you guys are so like Bitcoin Cash, you guys are so decentralized. We don't know who to talk to, which I think is both a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it makes me happy knowing it feels like it's kind of the point. You're not supposed to know who to talk to. If you have a good idea, go and fucking do it.
Yeah, it's commissionless, right? That's the sort of the buzzword phrase for it, right? And I think, and this podcast, I think is quite a good example of that. That I've been a big follower of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and cryptocurrency for a long time, but I was just sitting there one day and I just thought, damn, the community could really use this, in my opinion. And so I just started it. I didn't ask anybody, and I didn't even think, let me just contact the Bitcoin Cash organization or the whoever.
Make sure I'm not saying anything wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure I've got the stamp of approval or whatever. You can just do it, and I encourage that. That's true for everyone in every cryptocurrency. If you like that cryptocurrency and you want to make it better, and hopefully you're not in it just to see the price rise, but if you want to see the price rise, what you can actually contribute besides buying more, which obviously has a limit, eventually you'll run out of money, is to make something for the community, and just do it and share it, and there you go. And we will come back to this because I have a section about the nodes and everything as well. So yeah, just before we move off this mining algorithm, so one thing to know is that the difficulty adjustment in the mining algorithm is, well, it's not in the mining algorithm, but alongside the mining algorithm, has been different in Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. We sort of mentioned that before with the Nakamoto consensus and that whole discussion that they had with Kim.com. But we will come back to that, but that's just something to note. So, okay, here we go. So, yeah, this is, we already sort of discussed this, right? But basically, the mining pools for Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and also Bitcoin SV or any others are shared. So, the mining pools can switch back and forth between the chains, and they actually do that fairly regularly in terms of if the price changes, they adjust to those market forces and move back and forth. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, definitely I recommend looking up these graphs of the hash rate and having a, this is actually quite healthy, I'd say, in terms of.
It's gotten quite a bit more diverse over the past year too.
Yeah, definitely. When I think when I was looking at these graphs a few years ago, there was usually 2 or 3 big players and then a bunch of smaller ones. So it was still like nobody was in control, but obviously over time the system is working in that people are splitting out into more and more different groups, just because anybody can get into it, and there's a constant competition too, I suppose. So yeah, I think that I'm really glad to see that, actually, that it is coming along like that. That bodes well. Currency. Okay, and so then the community infrastructure. So this is another thing I think that is undervalued by people when they think about the split from Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, is that even though the chains split and they were going their separate ways, cryptocurrency as a whole still had a lot of momentum, and currencies that already had Bitcoin, pretty easy to add Bitcoin Cash, or any other companies that are in the crypto space. It's much harder to get into the crypto space than once you're in it to switch currencies, or in a lot of cases to support multiple currencies. So all that building and all that value in these kind of companies, wallets, exchanges, news sources, payment processors, etc., all that value does spread around to every single cryptocurrency. Yeah.
I agree completely. I got nothing else to add.
Well, yeah, I think it's just an interesting thing, because some things are specialized, right? Like a certain wallet can focus on the certain feature of a coin, or maybe add features that they couldn't have in other currencies or whatever.
Yeah, it's like Cash Shuffle and Electron Cash.
Yeah, Cash Fusion. Yeah,
or
exactly.
Cash Fusion now, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So those kind of initiatives do, over time, they do sort of fragment and become distinct, but definitely at the time of the split, and probably forevermore, there will always be the ability to support multiple currencies for businesses that are in the space. And so in that way, even when you look at the coin market cap and you look at the different sizes, that's not necessarily indicative of actually how much infrastructure there is available, because the infrastructure available might be available to a lot of the biggest coins as a huge base layer, and then their individual merits are built kind of on top of that. So I think that's something for people to keep in mind. All right, so let's get to the good bit, which is the differences between Bitcoin Cash and BTC. And this is the first and the biggest one. I'm interested in your thoughts on this, that the Bitcoin logo and brand is obviously Bitcoin with the B, which looks like the Thai baht symbol, but the B with the little, I don't know what are they called, the little wings, little extensions, the straight lines through it. The B in the orange circle, and Bitcoin Cash has obviously added the cash and also got the green color. So I'm interested in what are your thoughts, but I think there's a number of important things to point out here.
So I remember being involved in the community discussions when people were arguing about color and branding and whatnot, and I think it was my very first GitHub repo ever was I made a shell script that took the Bitcoin Cash logo and ran it through ImageMagick in every single hue, with every single saturation, with every single light source. Wow. So I made every color possible. And the description of the repo is like, what's the color of the Bitcoin Cash logo? All of them, fuck you.
Yeah. Nice.
I really like the green. I think as general adoption and branding, the green with the tilt up is much more comforting and optimistic. logo to me than the or. And it's weird because Bitcoin BTC is always like that number go up, but to have the B facing down is I don't know. It just seems odd to me.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I mean, I was very attached to the original Bitcoin because obviously the logo, that was the one that represented everybody, and I was used to that, and also just the B, and I think even at some stage the orange, it was quite it's quite a high contrast color, right? So it helped it to stick out in those early days. Be this is different, and it sort of had that vibe to it. So then when it split off into Bitcoin Cash, even though I supported Bitcoin Cash for all the technical reasons and ideologically and stuff, I was always kind of like, oh, damn, but we had to change the branding. But over time, I've come to really and I think it's actually an improvement to have the Bitcoin Cash brand because, as you say, green, it's the color of money. People say cash is green in the US. And then also, like you're saying, it's about green is the color of nature and of growth. I mean, Bitcoin maybe not that great for nature, but for growth, and when the exchange ticker, when it goes up, it's green. And when it goes, down, it's red or even maybe orange, right? So it's a more positive vibe like that and more welcoming. I agree. The tilting of the logo upwards, it just makes it seem like it's looking up. It's on the, it's looking towards the future. And even the addition of the cash, I think a subtle point that people don't maybe get as much is that when you talk to people about Bitcoin, one of the things I've heard the most common is you try and explain to them, the first things you say are there's 21 million Bitcoin, and they already sort of know, okay, the price is whatever the price is, and they say, I don't have enough money to buy one though. And it's just like, you have to explain, but it's divisible and you can buy a smaller amount of it. And that doesn't just, a coin, people think of it in a discrete unit. But with cash, if you say Bitcoin Cash, I haven't heard anybody say, I don't have enough, because cash is divisible, right? It's already sort of built into the concept, and it's even maybe just a bit more approachable because everybody understands Bitcoin, or they've heard about that, whatever impression they have. But Bitcoin Cash, it's kind of like, but this is the more sort of friendlier alternative or more casual alternative, right?
Yeah, I think too, this kind of goes back to the whole, like, they're both Bitcoin. And so if BTC just is this store of value, then when people say Bitcoin Cash, they're going to recognize it as, oh, that's the Bitcoin that I use for my transactions in my daily life.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually they might just call it cash, right? If we do get rid of fiat cash, then
I agree. And I mean, I think it's quite ironic in some senses that currently or after the fork, a lot of the BTC supporters, they called Bitcoin Cash Bcash to try and sort of spread this kind of impression that it wasn't related or that it was a different thing or whatever. And Bitcoin Cash has fought very hard to keep that association, that it is still part of the Bitcoin brand. But I think that's a good thing in two respects. One is that, like you're saying, people have to distinguish, okay, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, they're curious what's the difference, and they look into it and they need to educate themselves and figure it out. They can't, if they just go with Bitcoin and they think, oh, Bitcoin Cash is a knockoff, surely at some point or another, they will get the idea of, why is this? Why, how did this all come? And then you understand forks and you understand cryptocurrency more. But the other part, I think, is also that Bitcoin Cash has the opportunity, as time goes by, to differentiate itself, like you're saying. Like if Bitcoin has a huge meltdown, the transaction fees get too high, and everybody switches over to Bitcoin Cash, maybe we'd just call it Cash, or maybe I even think BitCash is quite catchy or whatever, and that can be sort of worked in there. Maybe now is not the right time because having that association with Bitcoin is quite useful, but if Bitcoin does completely melt down, then Bitcoin Cash will be, that was them. This is us. It's still kicking off, right? So I think, it's subtly these logos. This is a huge deal. Bitcoin is traditionally cryptocurrency, not a very marketing focused type of industry. A lot of engineering, a lot of technical focus rather than design or branding. But I think Bitcoin Cash is on a winner with that one in my mind. Okay. The second point, the block size limit. So this was the cause of the initial fork, is that BTC wanted to have 1 megabyte, and they've stuck with that. And at the time, the argument was more sort of like, it's too early to raise the block size limit or something, but that's kind of calcified into we're never going to raise the limit, pretty much. Which
Yeah, it's too early and it would lead to centralization.
yeah, and so then Bitcoin Cash split off because people didn't really believe that 1 megabyte was enough. They thought, well, maybe could we have 2 or 4 or whatever, and they split off and they had 8, and then they later raised it to 32. And of course, now we're starting to see the impact of that. That Bitcoin Core has these fees of $5 to $10 at least, if not more. While Bitcoin Cash is still like less than 1 cent, because you can always get into the next block because they've created more room, right? So the block size limit and fees, yeah, was a big issue. All right, cool. And then we got number 3 is the community and the mission statement. So we've already been talking about this a bit, but BTC has sort of decided that maybe it wants to be a store of value or digital gold, and Bitcoin Cash as peer-to-peer digital cash. But I think what people need to understand as well is that the difference in the community is quite stark, and over time will be the deciding factor, right? There's a lot that can be said for the technology or the branding or this or that, right? But the point of a cryptocurrency is the people you can trade it with, and the people who will invest their time and effort, their motivation or whatever into marketing it and building new businesses and accepting it and trying to trade it or promote it, all those things. So the sort of the people that you choose to, the community that you choose to be a part of, will have a huge impact in the long term, in the very long term, especially because it compounds over time, as to the success of the currency. So I do encourage people, if they're new to all this, to go have a look, especially if they're Reddit users, to go on reddit.com/r/bitcoin and, I don't know, make some posts or just chat to people or just read what's going on there and get a bit of a vibe for what's going on. And then reddit.com/r/BTC, which is a hangover originally, but it is more the BCH focused subreddit now. And just read, get involved, or and just see how you like it, right? Because you'll be able to see the difference in the community's approaches to what technology they're building or what people are talking about or what they're trading for, all that kind of stuff.
I gotta say too, like, just being a part of this and seeing your involvement and optimism for everything made me realize, like, I haven't done meetups in forever. Developing on Bitcoin Cash thing is going to take some time. Obviously, I got to increase my skill set. But I think the start of April, once I get settled into a new place, I want to build, like, just take a day, completely fill it with making videos about how to use certain Bitcoin Cash applications, because I feel like one of the things that the community is missing is there's just the integration. Like, there's a lot of talk about adoption or number go up, or other coins are doing this and that, whether good or bad. But I don't feel like there's enough community talk of, like, just like, hey, here's a useful resource for the average person to use before getting involved.
Yeah.
Or, like, just how to use it. So I'm going to sit down and try and do that. And thank you for being inspirational.
Man, wow, I'm touched. But, well, I think, and to me, it's interesting that you say that, because that is a huge difference in the communities. Is that at the time of the fork, and certainly before the fork, there was so much energy in the Bitcoin community. It was just this all-conquering force where everyone that you talk to would say, Bitcoin, what's this? It's garbage or whatever. Back in the day, before it was more known, it was a scam, and there was so much bad news and stuff. Even despite that, in the Bitcoin community, people were so positive and optimistic, and even just every small win was like a huge deal. Oh, I got my friend involved in it, and here's a photo of us, trading a little bit, or whatever it was. There was just, and it was like it was going to spread economic liberty to the world, and we were going to be banking the unbanked, and all of this stuff was just so, like, positive and forward-looking, very revolutionary, right? Like Kim.com in that Clubhouse story, he talks about crypto being revolutionary, and he's right, and that was how it was and how it was felt, and it is something that is on my mind that at some point I'll do an episode where it will pull up some old videos of the that I remember where people were talking about Bitcoin in the early day, and you can see that how that was, and it really just contrasts with today in the BTC community, and then the BCH community right now, because it is it's in a building phase, because the people are attracted obviously to the price going up and the hype and everything around that, right? Is what attracts people into BTC at the moment. And in BCH, because the price has been down, even though it's been up against the US dollar, but it's been down relative to other cryptos, people who are just interested in speculation and bringing a lot of hype and excitement, they're not necessarily finding it, right? It is more that hardcore crowd of people who, want to build a business and want to be able to use it in their daily lives and that kind of thing. And I think if there is a surge at some point in BCH, you'll start seeing some more of that revolutionary type energy and thinking, because it's hard to sustain that when your fees cost $5, because anybody actually using it will think it's shit. But yeah.
Yeah, right on board with you.
So yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see. But to me, I think the vision is still there in the BCH community, and I think the excitement will come as the scales start tipping from BTC to BCH. So, but yeah, people can make up their own mind. If they want to store a value, maybe they can go to BTC. If they want to use digital cash, maybe they can go to BCH, and we'll just see how it plays out. All right. So
yeah, I think there's still room for both for sure, and it's just like my interest lies in what's the average person going to use. Average people aren't investing in gold or store of value or stocks or whatever the fuck. Average people are living paycheck to paycheck and need a fucking cash system. So
that's right. Yeah, exactly. And a low barrier to entry is obviously critical. And in my mind, once people are using the cash system, well, it will naturally follow that if that's what they want, then that's what big institutions and so on and so forth will naturally sort of tend to as well, because that's what the people are going to, that's what their employees or whatever are going to be like. Give me Bitcoin Cash, right? I don't care about this other BTC. But who knows? Yeah, you're right. I think communities don't need to fight. Definitely, that if BTC can go its own way, and well, we're here with the Bitcoin Cash podcast, so what we're back in. All right, so number 4, we got the node software and development team. So this is a very interesting point, which is that right now on the BTC network, or when I checked yesterday, there was about 7,700 BTC nodes and about 1,300 BCH nodes, right? So interestingly, this is, I think, actually quite a good sign for BCH, because the price difference is about 85 to 1, and yet the number of nodes is actually, closer to like 1/6 or 1/7 in the BCH community. So again, it sort of shows that it's more that hardcore type of vibe, where there are people who are very committed, and when you consider as well that the nodes, they all run a certain implementation of the software, and so on BTC there's 98.17% is with Bitcoin Core, which was the first one ever written, like back in the day. And then there's a few others here, Bitcoin Classic, Bitcoin UASF, whatever. All of them are under under 0.4, well, I guess this one's 0.9%. They're all under 1%, and combined, they're less than 2%. So that was part of why the fork happened, was that then the development team of Bitcoin Core had a certain emphasis or a certain opinions or whatever, and they kind of kicked out anybody who didn't agree with that. And that's how, and that's still the way it is today, right? So if the Bitcoin Core software developers have a certain opinion or idea or whatever, well, that's probably the way things are going to go, because it's not spread out among, different voices. And so they do have some sort of unilateral control over it. And then with Bitcoin Cash, and I think this is actually unique among cryptocurrency. I don't know any other cryptocurrency that has anything like this, where there is actually several competing node implementations. Like there's Bitcoin Unlimited is about 40%, Bitcoin ABC close to 30%, BCH node is close to 27%, and there's a few others in here as well. They're all like a smaller share, but there is actually 3 teams, and I think that is a big focus of the Bitcoin Cash, like the technical part of the community, is because of those problems with Bitcoin Core. They really want to avoid what is called a reference implementation, right? That one person does it and then everybody else copies, but more that it is decided as a collective. But obviously you can't force it, since if some other huge percentage of nodes don't want to agree with you, well, you can't make them. So you've got to have a good idea that survives the sort of community discussion test.
Yeah. Bitcoin ABC will slowly start to get cut out of that graph.
Yeah, because they forked off, right?
They no longer support it.
Yeah.
There was like, after the fork, they supported it for a little bit, but since they've announced that by the next upgrade, they're not going to be doing any maintenance for that software. So
well, maybe I could come in, take that over, just fork that off and keep it alive. Like, I don't know.
BCHN is a fork of the ABC code base.
Yeah.
So maybe see if you can contribute to those guys.
Yeah, I don't know. Interesting. I just think it's good to have that sort of those different implementation, and hopefully some of these other ones will get some traction and stuff too. A couple more percentage of nodes or whatever.
BCHD seems to be more focused on developer, like as a developer node, and they're also finishing up their SLP support, which will be massive.
Yeah, nice. I didn't know that. So yeah, that's it's pretty cool. And anyway, the point is, if you're interested in running a node, maybe consider one of these other smaller ones and just spread out the sort of support in the community. I think that's the benefit of everyone, really. All right, so now we've got some technical differences. So these, I don't want to get too much into detail on all these things because there's a lot there, and some of it could deserve their own episode, really. But basically, at the time of the fork, along with the disagreement about the block size, part of what was wrapped up in that was various other different features. So on BTC, they now have these things called replace by fee, which is that if you send a transaction and it gets stuck, which would happen if you have so many transactions overflowing your block limit, then you can send another fee which has another transaction which has a higher fee, and it will replace it, right? So what that means is that you can unstick your transaction, but it also means that if you're a merchant and you accept it, you have to wait for a confirmation, because otherwise if you get a fee that pays 10 cents and you think great, but the guy walks out of the store and then he sends another transaction with $1 fee and he sends the money back to himself, you're screwed, right? And related to that is this other one called segregated witness, called SegWit, which was super controversial at the time, again around the block size limit, all of that, which is basically the idea that in a Bitcoin transaction you can cut out some of the data and have it sort of like as an additional, like a side cab in a motorbike kind of idea, and put the data in that. And part of why it was suggested was that then in theory that could allow the blocks to go from 1 to up to like a virtual 4 megabytes to create more space. I mean, to me and to a lot of other people, I think it was just like, well, why don't we just raise the block size limit? But that was what they wanted, and they put that in, and in reality it's proven to be maybe about 1.4 or 1.5x rather than 4x the amount of increase that it's given.
There's also some situations where SegWit makes your total transaction size larger.
Yeah. So it is variable. It does depend, but basically it didn't help the scaling very much. And I think critically to me, also, I think it has made it so it's quite difficult for them to unwind in my mind. So that's one thing where people can say, okay, if BCH like ever got momentum, well, one way that BTC could sort of fight back was they could increase their own block size, but it's not really quite that simple, I don't think, at this stage, now that they have chosen their path. Maybe they could do that, I don't know, but along with their community narrative being very heavily set against that idea, and obviously it's difficult to change people's minds, also these sort of technical features do mean they will be slower on the uptake if it suddenly proves that they need to change their strategy. And then there's also the Lightning Network. So I don't really want to go into this. We can do that on a separate episode. But basically the idea is that to scale in BTC, their plan is to have a sort of separate network running on top of their current network, which people can use and has lower fees. And there's a lot of debate and discussion about that. But the one thing that is important to mention is that if Bitcoin Cash, if that proved to be a phenomenal success, and it's been 5 years in the making and hasn't really got very far, but if it did prove to somehow come out and be amazing, you could actually just do the same thing on Bitcoin Cash, and it would even be better, because if the foundation layer is bigger and more capable in the transactions it can process, then the second layer obviously amplifies that, right?
Yeah, I might be misremembering, but I believe SegWit is required for Lightning only because it's a malleability fix, and so there are alternative malleability fixes that haven't really been looked at, because
Wow.
we haven't even thought about layer 2 realistically the focus on layer 2 has been minimal, right? So but yeah, I remember getting an argument with BTC folk like a year and a half ago about, well, we can integrate Lightning Network, and they're like, well, you need a malleability fix.
Oh, we can do that.
Yeah, we don't need SegWit.
Yeah. So yeah, again, for the real technical people, they can go and look into that, read up on all that, and maybe we'll try and do an episode about breaking down some of that stuff in more detail. But that's the stuff that's in BTC, and then in BCH, so they had Cash Fusion and Flipstarter. So these are not actually in the protocol, right? These are just extensions that wallets can sort of build in somehow, right?
But what you can add here is check data sig verify and Schnorr signatures.
Yeah. Do you want to break them down a little bit? I haven't read up as much on those ones.
Check data sig verify is a little above my understanding. I think what its purpose is to allow for more privacy, and it's something to do with like allowing. Yeah, I feel like I should just keep my mouth shut in this case. Maybe I might be saying this wrong.
Yeah, we'll have to get someone on who can break it all down in detail. Yeah.
But Schnorr signatures was specifically for privacy, because you know what? Yeah, no. Let's just we'll keep it at that.
All right. Okay.
Get Mark Lunderberg. Ooh, can't remember his last name. Something like that. Get him on, because he was the guy who put Schnorr signatures, or did the whole Schnorr signature work for Bitcoin Cash.
All right, sweet. Well, yeah, I guess you can all look forward to that in a future episode. But basically, yeah, they added the new address format, and also I'm just remembering now, the different SIG codes, op return. They added that sort of stuff as well, so that Bitcoin Cash could do more things, like sort of like a mini Ethereum, not actually like as much as Ethereum in terms of all the smart contracts and all this different stuff that you can do, but having the ability to have the different tokens on it and all those kind of things was added to Bitcoin Cash. And then these were the two that I thought of, which is the Cash Fusion, which is to increase privacy, that you can swap coins with people without them knowing who swaps what, or anybody else knowing, so it can increase your privacy. And then Flipstarter, which is sort of like the Bitcoin Cash version of Kickstarter, where people can pledge in a certain amount of money, and then it only all comes together if the funding goal gets met at the end of the day, right? So yeah, here we go. So this is, I think, maybe the final point, which is the difficulty adjustment algorithm that we mentioned before. So in BTC, it adjusts every 2 weeks, every 2016 blocks. So if there's more hash rate, the difficulty goes up so that it stays consistent at 2 weeks. And then on BCH, they had for a while they had the emergency difficulty algorithm, which they added in at the time of the fork. Again, that kind of goes back to what the people were saying to Kim.com about they didn't like that and everything. But then now, the algorithm now is that it just adjusts every block. So instead of checking each 2 weeks, it just checks every roughly 10 minutes when it adjusts. And I think that's fine. I mean, maybe some people, again, it sort of comes back to what is the real Bitcoin, etc., etc. But to me, I think the most notable thing about this is that it has the possibility for the death spiral, which I talked about in the first episode of this podcast, where in theory, because there's this 2 week delay in the Bitcoin adjustment algorithm, it's possible that if the Bitcoin Cash surged in price, more of the miners that we saw before a shed switched from Bitcoin onto Bitcoin Cash, and then that slows down effectively the blocks of the Bitcoin network, and then the fees go higher because there's less transactions, less blocks, and then maybe the market is like responding to this as the momentum is shifting one way, and so then it's a feedback loop where the more hash rate moves over, the price gets higher for BCH and lower for BTC. Then there's the fees go higher, then everybody's panicking, they can't move their coins, the transactions is going up, it gets slower, and then it just compounds on itself.
The great flippening.
The great flippening. One day we will live to see a glorious flippening, I hope. But I mean, if it did actually go down like that, I mean, who's to know, right? It might be a disaster for cryptocurrency as a whole. Maybe it would suddenly create a lot more enthusiasm in the space. Maybe I think there would be a lot of very upset people who had invested in BTC as their coin had just suddenly crashed out from number 1 down to like the irrelevance at number 200 on CoinMarketCap or whatever. People who, I mean, to me it sounds like if that was possible, but it's very like Mount Gox based. Again, we'll do another episode on that. But at that time when that was happening, there's people panicking, oh no, my coins, blah blah blah, so many Reddit posts, oh my money's vanished, help me, blah 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 blah. I think it might end up a bit like that if people who have been warned, or they know about something, or maybe they don't know about it, and then only after it happens and it's too late suddenly is everybody up in arms about it, really.
Yep.
Okay, so we've just got one last slide here, which I thought was pretty funny. This is Mark Demislo. I mentioned in a previous episode. This is absolutely made me laugh. This is a classic. So he made a Twitter post which said, which train most likely to see growth in travelers? Because it's related to that Transaction Street site that I've showed before with the buses running through the bus stop. And it has the options, BCH train, and obviously he's a BCH focused guy, so people are gonna like that. So that's got 70.4% of the votes. Then he has BTC train, which has about 11%. So, fair enough, right? Like people can have their opinion. And then he's got option 3 is fuck you, Bcash, Btrash, and that has 10.3%. So very nearly the BTC train. And then he hits...
Hold on. So we have just as many people who are essentially anti-BCH as we do pro-BTC. That's important.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll discuss that in a moment. But yeah, I think that's very relevant. And then the last one is other train shill below, which has 8.2%. So I love this. Mark. This is a fantastic tweet. And I think the results of the poll are amazing because, like you're saying, it's these 3 options at the bottom that are not just the BCH trade. It's so indicative, right? If there's he put this option in knowing that a lot of people would go for this third option, fuck you, Bcash, Btrade, which is, it's just baiting, the toxic part of the community. Like, what is the use? If you supported BTC, wouldn't you just pick the BTC train? Apparently not.
Yeah.
Right?
So this is like a glimpse into the psyche of the BTC Maxi.
Yeah.
Or maybe just the anti-Bcash.
Yeah, exactly. Or just Twitter trolls or whatever, But I think in the context of, what we've talked about today and Kim.com, his message, I think that's very true, that people should just learn to just focus on their own coin, make their own thing great, and like, why you got to be hating, So I thought this was just absolutely amazing. And then the bottom option, 8.2% other train shill below. I mean, it's a bit of a dig to put shilling, that's the classic in cryptocurrency. If people don't like your coin, they like some other coin. That's shilling. It's obviously shilling. Obviously some paid, funded actors or whatever. But so I think that's the message I want to leave on, right? Is that for the BCH community, just be good to people. If you don't like BTC or you do like it or whatever, or any other coin, that's fine. Just be civil to people. It doesn't need to be toxic and arguing all the time and just, there's so many more people in the world that know nothing about crypto that you can talk to about Bitcoin Cash, or just be positive about, than arguing with BTC, because it doesn't get anywhere, and it's just an entrenched conflict. Everyone's got their own little play box, so they can play in that, and don't need to be poking everyone else.
Yeah, I think there's like, in the choice between, arguing with people, that's like, overall, I think, while it might not do harm, it's just a net negative. Then there's you can be civil to people, and that's great. I think you don't need to do any more than that. And then I think the best that you could do is like find people who are completely uninvolved and be kind to them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, crypto is a very new and scary thing, for a lot of people, and they're going to adopt it. Yeah, that's another episode. I keep saying all these episodes I want to do, and it's true, because there's a lot of episodes and a lot to
Lining up
discuss.
30 episodes right here.
Yeah. Hopefully got a few in the pipeline. But one of the things I want to do is talking about how people adopt crypto, and talking to new adopters and everything, or people who are not interested. And just a big part of that is you don't need to force it, right? People will come to it when they're ready, when they're interested, when they've heard about it enough times that it's sort of, in their mind, or for whatever reason, right? Whatever, their mate got rich, or whatever it is, they get interested when they get interested. But when they do, it's just really important to just be nice, explain everything really slowly, and let them find their own way, right? That's the Bitcoin philosophy. You can't force people into anything, and this sort of negative arguing between other coins. Like, what is the intended outcome of it? It doesn't help anyone. If people who like BCH, well, if they get told be trash, that's not really going to change their mind. That's just going to set them more into the divide. So yeah, for those BTC supporters, I suggest you change your strategy, because it doesn't work. And for BCH supporters, just don't rise to the bait. Just leave them to it, and carry on, build something positive that people want to be a part of, instead of trying to tear down other people.
Yeah. It's like, every time you see these kind of situations, you should ask yourself, like, is this going to be persuasive to anyone, or is this like, yeah, I think you can just leave it at that. I feel like most of the time, it ends up being divisive, not persuasive, so it's counterintuitive.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And just ultimately, people who do that, they just discredit the coin that they are advocating for, right? Because anybody can read
they're
that.
douchebags.
It's just unpleasant, right? And
yeah,
and the other thing is, it's very online, right? Is that if you went to a real meetup or whatever, you couldn't say something like that. If you did, everybody would just look at you like, dude, all right, see you later, and you just get excluded, or people would just say, okay, go have beers somewhere else. Like, we're all just being nice here. Yeah, exactly, right? It can't. It just doesn't fly for real. And I mean, people online, they always feel like they've got that anonymity to just take it one step further, or whatever. So yeah, just ignore that, and let's just make something great with Bitcoin Cash. So yeah, that's pretty much it. To the end of the show. I don't know if you want to give any shout outs or anything.
Cheap Lightning, yeah. Thank you for inviting me to the Osaka meetup. That was fantastic. I definitely want to be a part of those more. And then to you, Jeremy, for again being so inspirational. If I could get me back on track.
Yeah. Well, I want to just shout out to my parents. Mum and Dad. I know I was trash talking you a bit earlier, but it's all good. Thank you if you watch this episode, and also to the donators to the show. We've had they come in, a few people donate. It's obviously pseudonymous. I have no interest in tracking you down and finding out who you are, but thank you for contributing. It really really motivates me that doing something good here that the community enjoys. So that's it really, and I think we'll leave it there, and until next time.